I come San Francisco!
So the gay Super Bowl took place on June 24th with the release of Deltarune Chapter 5. I banished myself from the internet realm until I completed playing the chapter, and by that I mean I surfed the internet like normal and just blocked various Deltarune tags on Tumblr. I got an entirely different experience from what I was expecting, as is the case whenever someone consumes a Toby Fox product and gives himself expectations before doing so. I've been following the game since it was ominously announced on Twitter by Toby Fox role-playing as his creepypasta OC. I've been in the fandom space since the beginning, and one of my favorite pastimes is watching video essays on incredibly minute game details, such as the direction the knight's blade appears to swing during their battle. I like video essays, and the story secrets of Deltarune and its predecessor Undertale are so bountiful and cryptic that the fandom will rip to shreds new pieces of information that are data mined from the game, obsessing over minute details over and over until theories become so numerous and hyper-specific that we have many fans believing that the main antagonist of Deltarune is a character which has yet to prove his existence in the game, and we get theory videos titled shit like this. Shit was an intentional pun. Gay people love Deltarune, and to love is to respect, to obsess. I respect this game as an art form, and I am obsessed with Deltarune. This story consumes many of my waking thoughts, and discussing those thoughts and its story is how I express my love for it. So I would like to talk about my reaction to and impression of Festival Day Deltarune Chapter 5. There was a lot to love and be captivated by, and also a lot of missed narrative opportunities that elicited frustration in me. This video is for people who know the game. I won't be citing my sources to make concrete arguments, we're just talking opinions today. Let's get to it.
Smile again.
This festival has been hyped up to be a huge town-wide celebration of, I don't know actually, flowers, I guess, with some Halloween in there too. It kind of gives Valentine's Day vibes because going with someone to the festival is constantly implied to be an obviously romantic gesture, and there's an activity in the festival where the townsfolk can vote on their favorite hometown ship. This is kind of a missed opportunity for world building. Hometown has a really strong religious community, so I'd be interested to see what kind of religious holidays they'd observe, or if there's a cultural or environmental phenomenon that occurs in this world that would warrant having a holiday celebrating it. Considering the festival is the premise of the chapter, at least in the light world, I would have liked to see it fleshed out further. Gameplay wise, the festival is cute, but only because it serves as a pretense for Susie and Noelle's date. I would have liked to play actual mini games at the festival's attractions, like I want to punt a ball at icy or swing a hammer really hard or make my own takoyaki. Dialogue heavy segments in Deltarune can feel a bit like reading a visual novel, and I think it'd benefit from breaking that up with gameplay, not just dialogue choices. Susie and Noelle's confession at the lake had me actually sobbing, like tears running down my face, chest heaving sobbing. Something I was absolutely not prepared for was the beautiful inclusion of queer joy in an unskippable cutscene. In today's political environment, scenes like this are needed, and I'm really grateful that the Deltarune team are giving Susie and Noelle's romance arc so much screen time, adorable writing, and new sprite art. Genuinely very moving and perfect for a story about hopes and dreams. I saw a critique of Susie's sudden fixation on Noelle. This has some ground to stand on. In previous chapters, Susie is not fixated on Noelle nearly to the extent that Noelle is fixated on Susie. To some players, Susie's constant mentioning of Noelle can seem a bit jarring. I think the romance is built up well when you consider Chapter 2's scene in Noelle's bedroom in Queen's Mansion and the Ferris wheel, and Chapter 4's gestures broadly. It's well established that they like each other, enjoy spending time together, and make each other happy. Susie doesn't talk about Noelle in previous chapters because she's completely oblivious to romance. Susie has no idea that Chris has a crush on her, and has no idea that Noelle has been wanting to get close to Susie for a very long time. I imagine that before Toriel, no one had even considered that Susie is a wonderful and loyal friend before they profiled her as a bad kid. She's not used to affection, not used to thinking of others as trustworthy. It takes Chris and Ralsei breaking her out of her shell for her to realize that she is surrounded by love if she opens her heart to it. Love finds its way to the girl. Susie embracing romance as an option for her is a slow build-up, and it makes sense why she's ignored romance up until this point. That being said, I do agree that it would have made Susie's infatuation with Noelle more strong and believable if we saw in prior chapters her more frequently thinking of Noelle. If we saw more often things in the dark world reminding her of Noelle, or saying to herself that she'd appreciate hearing how Noelle would solve a problem that the Fun Gang are facing. Things like that which demonstrate that Noelle is on Susie's mind, even if Susie can't quite identify why. The demon in me wants to say that Cruzy x Susie shippers just need to cope, and they can ship Cruzy while appreciating this extremely rare, explicit, wholesome romance between two girl leads. But it's okay, I get it, I'm a Cruzy shipper too. Actually, I'm big on Cruziel, but your ship doesn't need to become canon for you to enjoy it. Currently, shippers understand that. Anyway, Rudy Holiday is dead, maybe? Ha ha, he's probably fine. Setting up the possibility that a beloved main character has possibly died on what is otherwise the happiest day of these teenagers' lives is pretty serious and is a massive fucking elephant breathing down our necks, which absolutely needed to be addressed this chapter, but we'll circle back on Rudy later.
What a predictable creature.
My immediate and biggest critique of this chapter is that it is far too self-referential. There's a lot of points I need to bring up here, so just stick with me. The first section of this Dark World is exactly Chapter 1's Field of Hopes and Dreams, recolored. The music, the tiles, the puzzles, the trees, the rooms, the Rudins, Malleus, the worm, the stalker bird, everything about this first segment is one-to-one Chapter 1. Why? The flowers are the human souls from Undertale, a different game on a completely different timeline, potentially a parallel universe. They are the same colors, they are represented by the same signature items, they use the same attack patterns that you only see if you very specifically complete the true pacifist route in Undertale and fight Omega Flowey. Why? There are constant jokes being made which reference previous chapters of Deltarune, like the 50th fucking Susie's idea joke and the flavor text in the diner about Asgore's buttercup pie, which is a deep cut reference to the VHS tapes in Alphys's True Lab in Undertale, which again you'd only understand if you had played Undertale a very specific way and recall such minute details. Why? Why are all of these callbacks here? Why in such quantity and why now? I'm asking genuinely, I don't remember such volume of callbacks in prior chapters. It feels stark and intentional here in Chapter 5. The humor and settings of prior chapters supported themselves. There is no story reason why Chapter 5 looks so much like Chapter 1. There is no story reason why the flowers are humans. You could use the argument that Flowery is trying to appeal to Asgore by making the flowers look human because Asgore, has a human child, I guess. But couldn't the flowers then also be goats because Asgore also loves his goat child and his goat wife? And there's no story reason why the jokes need to be so self-referential. Like, we aren't given a good justification in the narrative for any of these references, so they don't exist to serve the story. They exist to evoke nostalgia. And let's explain why this doesn't work. Nostalgia for Chapter 1 is hard to evoke because sure, the chapter came out 8 years ago, but only 4 days in story. We haven't forgotten about Chapter 1's setting, and that wasn't much more than 30 hours of gameplay ago. Additionally, I think that generally in the community we're of the consensus that Chapter 1, although fantastic, is the weakest in the lineup of chapters. I don't miss the Starwalker bird or the grass tiles in the Fields of Hopes and Dreams. I miss Queen, and I just saw Queen 5 minutes ago begging Susie for computer grandchildren, and I still miss her terribly. Some of the references in Chapter 1 are appropriate in pointing out how much Susie has changed since their first adventure, and Rousey does so in a Chapter 5 puzzle room that is identical to one in Chapter 1. Rousey comments on how Susie was very resistant to being a team player, but now has no issue taking direction from Chris. But you can show this without the puzzle room, and it doesn't even need to be an identical puzzle, and you certainly do not need to paste an entire section of Chapter 1 to point out Susie's growth. As for the flowers, them being human is an Undertale reference, which leaves the players confused unless they understand the reference. It was fun and cheeky to have the players walk into Flower Kingdom in Chapter 1's Light World and to find 7 suspiciously soul-colored flowers. This is a nod to Undertale that Undertale players would understand, but that doesn't seem glaringly out of place or confusing for Deltarune-only players. But to make the flowers in the Dark World desire to become human and giving them human designs doesn't make sense at all for the story of Deltarune in isolation. I just disagree with Toby's reliance on the player's complete knowledge of Undertale for their full immersion in the world of Deltarune. Deltarune is a parallel story to Undertale, not a sequel. It does not exist in the same universe or even include the same characters. Toriel is still your mom, but this is not the same Toriel who lives in the ruins, who has watched 7 humans leave the safety of her home, and who has lost both of her children. I think if the intent was to recycle the world building of Undertale, Chapter 1 did so excellently by introducing us to faces that were familiar, but stories which were new. A player could come to Deltarune with an idea of what it should be based on their experience with Undertale, but that preconceived notion would be destroyed with Chapter 1's originality and independence from the greater Deltaverse. The result of these references is that Chapter 5 very much feels like it is living in the shadow of the chapters before it. The early setting, the character designs and motivations, even flavor text, all being self-referential, ask the player to not find joy in the new art and story of Chapter 5, but rather ask the player to dig up any old sentimental attachment they have about what they've already seen. It's very tired, and the shock value or comedic value of self-referencing degrades with every use. My first impression of the Dark World was not, flowery, that sounds like Flowey, how hilarious. It was, do the game devs not trust that this chapter can stand on its own 2 feet? How interesting would it have been to see the watering can mechanic expanded? To see mechanics which played more with the idea of growing plants to reach different areas? I love the segments where you grow grass tiles to reach new rooms. What if a part of the mechanics was finding seeds, planting them, and watering them into beanstalks to climb to other rooms as well? I wanted to see more play with gardening. How interesting would it have been to see the 7 flowers as like really cool flower darkeners? And they were all different types of flowers with attacks related to their types, like a rose with thorn bullets, a sunflower with sunbeam rays, a bird of paradise with a bird swarm attack, a mini game where you need to shake pollen onto a bee. I don't know. This is the Flower King Dark World, and I think the devs missed an opportunity to lean hard into what unique darkeners and environments could come from the stuff in Asgore's shop. As for the later segments of Chapter 5, I truly did appreciate how striking and unique the setting of Flower Castle was. This is what I want from new chapters. Distinct, independent identities. It wasn't until Flower Castle that I finally started getting invested in the story and started respecting the vision. This next opinion is controversial, and it's totally fine if you don't agree. I found the Japanese aesthetics to be strange. I don't think anime is cringe. I love lots of anime and I understand its many tropes and genres, but even then, I felt that some of the nods to anime culture felt like an inside joke or like self-gratification for Toby Fox. I know he speaks Japanese, loves Japanese culture, and Nihongo benkyou shiteimasu. So I feel like making these aesthetics so consistent across the art, character design, music, etc. was him weaving out a bit. And I would say power to him, but this setting does not make any sense. This is a dark world made in Asgore's house, not Alphys's. Why does the structure of his home materialize as a Shiro? Why would his country music CDs materialize as music that sounds like this? Like, the background art is gorgeous and the tracks are all fucking bops. But literally, what in Asgore's house made the Dark World manifest like this? Is it this manga Alphys lent to Asgore? This one tiny manga is like fucking Atlas bearing the weight of this chapter's visuals. And Mew Mew is the secret boss? Are you serious? Toby, I know you like when catgirls call you a stupid baka, but you have literally already designed an entire boss fight for Mew Mew. I know it's a Switch exclusive fight in Undertale, but fans of the Deltaverse already have access to a Mew Mew boss fight. Who was clamoring for another one? Who was like, no, I would hate to see the secret boss be device_friend, this ominous cat creature we see haunting the game, this creature with pink and gold eyes. I don't want to see it at all in a chapter known as the Field of Pink and Gold. Instead, I want a second boss fight with a catgirl figurine based on Alphys's favorite anime. Also, Mad Dummy is barely a character and a completely missable NPC. We don't see them or know their name in Deltarune. Also, there are already many jokes that have been made in the fandom about how weird Mew Mew is in the lineup of the other secret bosses. Every other secret boss has a major chapter appropriate theme attached to it. Jevil and escapism, how that relates to Chris and Susie finding danger and excitement in their first Dark World. Spamton and freedom, how that relates to the player being shown how the player and Chris are separate entities and we are taking away Chris's agency and identity by wanting to play Deltarune. The Shadow Mantle holder and determination, how that relates to the aftermath of Chapter 2's Weird Route and invites the player and Chris to destroy the game in search of its deeper secrets. The Old Man and fate, and that relates to the Fun Gang's free will to break the prophecy and write their own endings. And then there's Mew Mew. I mean, there are many themes which can be derived from her fight. Her battle with body versus mind could represent Chris's struggle with the soul for autonomy. Her choosing to love her trans identity could be a nod towards Chris's non-binary identity, or Rousey totally being a trans girl. These are fair interpretations to come to, but I'm not convinced that these themes were intentional. We have already seen a secret boss fight which is a very pointed allegory for transness and Chris's autonomy, Spamton Neo. Spamton's dialogue is more directly about such themes, and we see Chris's horrified reaction to how clearly Spamton's reliance on his strings parallels Chris's reliance on the soul. Mew Mew's battle does not point to any specific theme or conflict that the main characters are experiencing. I might eat my words on this if Rousey's arc indeed ends up revolving around his transitioning, though if that's the case, I really would have liked to see Rousey's reaction to Mew Mew fusing with her body. I'm just being honest, I cringed a little bit this chapter. I know cringe is dead, but these elements felt so strange and out of place, perhaps even self-gratuitous. Another grief of mine about the setting is that I think the most significant significant of Asgore's home, besides his flower shop, was left completely unexplored. His conspiracy board! We only see his conspiracy notes as loose sheets of paper for like a room or two, but this is the Asgore chapter in the Asgore house. The entire intrigue of his character is his obsession with solving Des's disappearance, his obsession with proving himself to be right to everyone to salvage his ego, and how his obsession was self-inflicted and tore apart his family. How are there not darkeners made of newspaper clippings or the red strings or the pushpins or the crazed journal ramblings? Why isn't this an aesthetic of a game segment? It would have been so engaging and unique to have a game segment be about solving a crime mystery where you have to collect clues and create a narrative and present that case in court. Oh wait, they literally do this! Yellow's battle incorporates a criminal investigation, but it somehow has nothing to do with Asgore's actual criminal investigation. Ah! I wanted a game of Clue where all 7 of the flowers are picking up the pieces of Asgore's notes and they all have different interpretations of what happened that day. The flowers should all at least know what happened in agonizing detail because they have been at Asgore's side through it all. We can even cut down the strings in certain sections of the game. What if this was utilized in actual gameplay? Obtaining his notes from the strings could mean that we are given more details about that day based on Asgore's ramblings. Or we could therapeutically help Chris shred the notes to impede Asgore's obsession with the investigation. In sum, the player has an extremely passive role in uncovering the secrets of the Dark Worlds because all the other characters have key knowledge that we have no way to access.
You're dead.
Chapter 5's story is really directionless. Like all the secret bosses, every chapter has a theme except for this one. This story is truly as casual as Chapter 1, which makes it feel like filler. But what gives this chapter the most personality by far is Flowery. A lot of people hate this motherfucker and were as rage baited by him as Ralsei was. I think the character is inoffensive overall. I didn't find him that funny or endearing, but I didn't think poorly of the way he's written. What does irritate me personally is that we now have our 4th man and 2nd twink main boss 5 chapters in, and Queen is our only femme boss, and she's the best boss character, by the way. I don't want any more Bishonen Tumblr sexy men bosses, please. The object head in a suit was bad enough, but he's fine. The voice clips are awesome.
Glue.
Flowery introduces us to a really fascinating concept that I had never considered before, which is what makes Castletown so special? We haven't been given a good justification for why Ralsei's pure dark fountain is the only one that is safe to exist. I'm not sure if this is an attempt to wave away a plot hole or if there is a true justifiable reason for this, which we just don't know yet. But at this moment, Flowery makes a compelling point that the Darkners of the Flower King Fountain deserve to live too, deserve to enjoy their home and live their dreams, because closing the fountain does mean a kind of death for the Darkners and their homes. So what makes Castletown better than the Flower King Dark Fountain? Nothing, just our own sentimental attachment to Castletown. But don't the flowers deserve their own Castletown? The final fight of Chapter 5 is gripping. The opening sequence is Flowery amassing the power of his recruits. Much like how in previous chapters, Chris, Susie, and Ralsei are aided in their final fights by all of the Darkners they befriended within that Dark World. Flowery grows stronger with the friends he made along the way. He and his siblings work together to defend their home. We lose Ralsei and Susie over the course of the fight, and Flowery says that we are alone, that he can't lose when he is supported with the love of his allies. We are the villain in their story. Wow, that really moved me. Deltarune is now making you engaged with the idea that while, according to the prophecy, too many dark worlds will bring about the roaring, the living darkners in those dark worlds shouldn't have their homes taken away from them if they can't or won't move to Castletown. And now we have to reckon with that. We have to decide whether or not the livelihoods of the flowers are worth risking. Oh. Never mind, I guess. The sequence of events that take place before the fountain is closed were very frustrating to me. A series of rushed, random, shoehorned events which the player has zero control over and doesn't even include the player or the fun gang as characters relevant to the event, as if they're watching an unskippable cutscene with very dramatic consequences. Oh, I guess there's a second dark fountain now that somehow magically appeared while no one was looking? Seriously, did the night make it literally the exact second before Chris closed this one? That's bullshit. Oh, I guess the knight's here, but the stakes are sheepishly prone on the ground. No tension is built or felt with the knight's sudden appearance. Oh, I guess Asgore is being kidnapped. Bye, Dad. Oh, I guess Flowery can run at the speed of sound and can maybe stand a chance against the knight. Oh, of course not. I guess he's half dead now. Okay, well, all of that was crazy, but we're not going to talk about that at all. Let's just get back to the fountain ceiling like nothing happened. This ending to the Dark World felt like a massive cop-out from having the story or player make any actual difficult decisions about the fates of the flowers, the moral weight of closing the Flower King Dark Fountain, Asgore's abduction, Flowery's death. All of this we just watch unfold so that our agency is taken away from the equation.
Oh, hello, Theodore. Can I help you?
And if you're wanting to justify this with Deltarune's theme of your choices don't matter, that justification is not supported in this instance because we aren't given the choice to begin with. In each chapter, you can choose whether to recruit or lose Darkners, and so far there isn't actually much change in the story as a consequence besides the emptiness of Castletown. You can choose whether or not to fight the knight in chapter 3, but the outcome is still the same. They abduct Undyne. This is a crucial part of Deltarune's theme of how your choices don't matter. Scratch at the walls all you like, exhaust every option until none are left, but everything you try will always result in the same ending. The choice still being given is a crucial part of the gameplay experience for the players so they don't feel as if they're being made to watch a movie. In this particular instance, we could have been given the option to send Flowery after the knight or chase the knight ourselves. The outcome would still be the same. Flowery could save us from a blow and still take the knight's blade, and Asgore would still be abducted. Okay, what else happened this chapter? Ralsei trans forever. His stronger boundaries felt a bit sudden, but definitely appropriate for the development of his character. This is the perfect time to have Ralsei encounter someone he doesn't like because they read his insecurities too easily. I love seeing Ralsei find his own voice in the little things, saying ass instead of bum, saying that he's interested in not just tea but also juice and coffee, expressing his fire magic because he's finding that there are other ways to protect his friends besides healing. The fire magic attack is super interesting to me because it plays with the party dynamic in a way that the game has been doing since chapter 2. Susie and Ralsei can both act, Susie can heal, and chapter 6 is looking like Ralsei will have an attack spell. I don't ever use Susie's healing spell, but I like that it becomes more cost effective with every chapter, and I love what it means for her character development. Classic Toby Fox games with the constant pushing of players' expectations on what RPGs are supposed to be. It's brilliant. With Noelle looking to join the party in chapter 6, I do wonder what that means for the party and Ralsei. Are we going to have a 4-person party with 2 mages, or will Noelle be replacing Ralsei? Having 4 party members sounds a bit more complicated, and I think it would be harder to balance in combat, but Ralsei's new spell has been set up quite nicely, and I'd really like to see how he attacks in the next chapter, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. My last note about the chapter's story is that, guys, I thought we left suicide jokes back in 2010. I don't find this very funny, maybe as a one-off joke, but Yellow's entire storyline is about trying to get him to stop killing himself in various fashions. I found this to be bizarre and off-putting, partially because I find it atypical of Toby's writing style to take such a serious matter and then play it for laughs. He's usually quite sensitive regarding topics of mental health. In Undertale's True Lab segment, Alphys talks about her suicide ideation, and this is given an appropriately severe tone. Meanwhile, in contrast, we are given an extremely uncomfortable image of Yellow's hands shaking and his eyes tearing up as he holds a gun to his own head. Yellow's guilt and self-punishment could have taken the form of like a Looney Tunes-esque slapstick routine, which in my opinion would have landed better and with absolutely no negative consequences to the writing. I'm sorry to any players who were put off by this. The suicide jokes were dragged on too far, and the fact that it is unskippable means that any player who becomes distressed about the subject of suicide, which I can imagine is understandably a lot of players, are forced to be triggered over this outdated style of comedy and have their game experience tainted. Call me a snowflake all you want, I just don't find suicide jokes very funny.
Last Gerona.
This ending was incredibly anticlimactic. We finished this chapter with more questions than answers. How long ago was that day that Asgore refers to? What happened? Where did it happen? Who was hurt? How did it involve the Dark Fountain? How does Asgore even know that they're called Dark Fountains? I have theories and assumptions, but we did not learn much that we couldn't infer from this creepy scene with Asgore in Noelle's house. From this, we can very clearly infer that Asgore has been working on something in secret for quite a long time, and this project is about to be completed. He's done something wrong in the eyes of Toriel and is trying to make Toriel understand his perspective. He refers to a dark event in time which has been the source of his troubles, and he has a fucking black shard. Holy shit! So Asgore has potentially encountered the Knight and has some kind of connection to the Dark Worlds. And what did we learn about Asgore's mistake in chapter 5? We got confirmation that Asgore knows about the Dark Worlds. That's it. We got more information from this completely missable scene in chapter 4 than we did in a Dark World literally about Asgore. Ugh. I was frustrated watching Asgore's final monologue. I needed just something that we couldn't have already inferred from that scene in chapter 4. Of course, all of these assumptions needed to be confirmed in the actual text of chapter 5, but we needed further exposing of the story to feel like the plot has been moved even an inch. I just wanted him to say something like, I missed December too, or I won't lose any more of you the way we lost December, or it's time I leave the shelter in the past. Something. We are in the same position plot-wise as we were at the end of chapter 4. The only new development is that we got a second shelter code. I think that from the perspective of the overarching story across the chapters, this is unacceptable coming off the heels of chapter 4. 4 raised the stakes astronomically. We got many pieces of the prophecy, development for Ralsei and Susie. We learned more about how dark fountains work and the knight's abilities. We learned about creatures in the dark world, which are not quite lightners or darkners. We learned about titans and freaking fought one. Chapter 4 was so hype, and chapter 5 needed to carry that momentum to some degree. I know that Toby referred to 5 as the calm before the storm, but this doesn't work for 2 reasons. 1, having a chapter with little plot momentum immediately after the chapter with the most plot momentum means chapter 5 weakens the overall story and feels like filler. Filler at the climax of a story is distracting and softens the impact of the finale. We can have goofy adventures in the classic humor of Deltarune, but the tone of the Dark World and the confrontation with Asgore needed to have higher stakes and way more story reveals. A setting like this would have worked much better if placed just before chapter 4. Number 2. There is no storm after the calm. And once the Flower King Dark Fountain is sealed, we completely gloss over the fact that the knight appeared and kidnapped Asgore. Hello? Why aren't Susie and Chris more panicked? I'm not expecting them to sprint down to the shelter again, but why didn't they have a very serious discussion about Chris's dad being subjected to God knows what in the shelter with the main antagonist of the game? Chris, are we seriously not going to talk about Rudy? Noelle's dad could be dead for all we know. How can you let Susie talk about bringing Noelle to the Dark World adventures when you know that there may have been a recent development in Noelle's personal life that would make her more interested in staying in the light world than going on silly adventure times? In my opinion, chapter 4 balanced its humor with the old man and its raised stakes with the knight and titan confrontations beautifully. I never felt like the jokes or serious beats in that story were out of place contextually. I can't say the same for chapter 5's sloppy judgment of tone. Okay, 2 more notes. Firstly, weird route. That's it. I don't have anything interesting to say besides it was the most terrifying game footage that I've ever watched someone else be subjected to. I kind of find it more intriguing than chapter 5, sadly. Insane shit. And I'm really curious about the decision to omit the weird route from chapter 6 because I've seen some evidence for chapter 6's Dark World taking place in the Holiday House, which seems like a playground for weird route content. Who knows? Let's see where this goes. Second point, to circle back on how Queen is our only femme boss and Mew Mew our only femme secret boss, I think that, very broadly speaking, there is this sort of oversight in making women characters that men tend to struggle with or have blind spots about. I am not saying that Toby or anyone on the Deltarune team is misogynistic, and I am so grateful for my babies, Susie and Noelle. Y'all have no idea how much these girls mean to me. But like, if I could just make a little critique, why does Asgore get to be awake in his dark world, but not Toriel? Why do we get to hear his story and his feelings about his family, but not Toriel's? Why can Chris become genuinely angry with Toriel for keeping them up all night, but they can't get properly angry with Sans? Telling Toriel that we're upset with her makes her sad and apologize to Chris and Susie for neglecting their feelings. Telling Sans that we hate him is treated like an unserious bit. No, I do actually think that Sans is equally responsible for how he disregarded the comfort and safety of Chris and Susie. Anyway, pray for trans girl Ralsei.
And one more for the fans!
Chapter 5 is extremely enjoyable. Deltarune continues to top itself with stronger visuals, music, gameplay mechanics, and battle systems with every chapter. This chapter was unbelievably fun to play, and what I love most about Deltarune is how you can feel the love the devs have for this game through the screen. That love is in every pixel, and it is meant to be shared with you. I just have a knee-jerk reaction to tear apart media that I love so that they can become perfect. Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm normal. I love Tricky Tony just as much as the next Delta head. Orange is my daughter and I would die for her. Some of the gameplay footage I used was specified as recorded by Snapcube, who is brilliantly funny, and I highly recommend you watch her Deltarune VODs. She has an infectious joy for this game, and I never get tired of rewatching her videos.
SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs. SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, Mr. Krabs. I'm sorry. 12 people just left. SpongeBob. It's not even a good one. It's not even a good one. It's not even a fucking good one.
I am working on another script for the finale of the show Good Omens. Absolutely no guarantee that I'll actually make it. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't claim to be one. Don't put that label on me. Shout out to this very anxious viewer of mine. I'm alive. I just refuse to become beholden to an audience's hunger for content. You can harass me about new uploads the moment I open a Patreon and start taking your money, which is never gonna happen. Genuinely, thank you for listening, and I invite you to agree or disagree in the comments and tell me why, or suggest any ideas that I didn't bring up in this video. Be kind to me and each other and yourself, please. I'm with you in the dark.